Good afternoon, and thank you so much for having me. I've felt extremely welcomed, so I appreciate that. To weave this back into the previous talks, my burning question is, how can I help effectively conserve the container that I am most passionate about, which are ecological containers? And in pursuit of trying to answer this question, I am currently a PhD student at Virginia Tech. And today I will be presenting my research, which is entitled Conserving Carnivore Communities Across Northern Botswana. And I am presenting this research on behalf of myself and my advisor, Dr. Marcella Kelly. Marcella is in Philadelphia today. She'll be here tomorrow. She's actually receiving the Global Conservation Ambassador Award from the Philadelphia Zoo this evening. So Marcella has research going on all across the world. The research that her graduate students are doing are circled with the red circles. And the research that she has going on with international collaborators are shown with blue circles. And just to provide a few examples, there's research going on tigers in Nepal and in Sumatra, on cheetahs in Tanzania and in Botswana, on pumas in Belize, Bolivia, and Argentina. So she really is trying to impact conservation all across the world, and I'm fortunate to be able to be part of her lab. So you may be asking, why carnivores specifically? Well, carnivores are disappearing from large portions of their historical range all across the world. Lions and cheetahs have both disappeared from over 75% of their historical range in Africa. All subspecies of tigers are now listed as endangered or critically endangered. And jaguars, which are an extremely adaptable species, have disappeared from over 50% of their range in Central and South America. Carnivores are also extremely important to monitor because they're wide-ranging. They're sensitive to environmental and land use changes at almost any scale. And at the best of circumstances, they generally survive in relatively small populations at low densities. All of these factors mean that they're increasingly vulnerable to extinction. Additionally, as top predators, they have direct or indirect impacts on many, many components within the ecosystems that they reside. For my research, why Botswana? Well, first of all, I absolutely love Botswana. It's a spectacularly beautiful country, and the people are incredibly warm and kind. But from a more scientific perspective, northern Botswana, where I will be working, is home to the Okavango Delta. And the delta is a really unique system. It's an inland delta that fills when floodwaters descend from Angola. And the delta actually fills with water during the dry season in Botswana. And this results in abundance of both permanent and migratory wildlife species, as well as some of the highest diversities of carnivores found anywhere in Africa. This results in the tourism industry now being the second largest contributor to Botswana's GDP. I am working in collaboration with the Botswana Predator Conservation Trust, which is one of the longest running conservation research organizations in Botswana. And I'll be based out of their field camp, which is shown by the star. And as you can see, it's just on the edge of the Okavango Delta. Recently in Botswana, there have been reports of declining wildlife populations, of increasing pressures from illegal hunting, and of large-scale changes in land use and management policies. So potentially changing a wildlife protected area, which is shown in the top photo, into a livestock grazing area, which is shown in the bottom photo. In response to these reports, Botswana's Ministry of Environment, Wildlife and Tourism announced that hunting would be banned across Botswana beginning in 2014. This is a really bold decision because trophy hunting actually contributes quite a lot to the GDP of Botswana. But it demonstrates the country really wants to be proactive in conserving their wildlife populations. But in order for Botswana to implement effective conservation measures, they are in need of additional information on what animals there are, how many there are, where they're located, and what they need in order to survive and reproduce and thrive. So in an attempt to help address this knowledge gap, our research focuses on carnivore communities. Specifically, I'm going to present my research in the form of 3 I's. The first I is to identify. I want to identify a sustainable method for monitoring carnivore communities. The second I is to implement. So I'd like to build collaborations with local government agencies and organizations in order for our monitoring program to be implemented into the future. And the third is to inspire. I want to inspire the youth of Botswana to be concerned with conservation. So starting with the first I, in order to develop a sustainable monitoring program, we're using 2 field research methods. The first are camera trap surveys, and the second are track surveys. Camera trap surveys, the basic premise is that they're remote sensing cameras that detect heat and motion from anything that passes in front of the camera. So once you set the cameras up, they're taking photographs 24 hours a day in all types of weather conditions, and people don't have to be there in order to collect that data. And they've been used internationally to monitor elusive carnivores like tigers and jaguars. Track surveys, alternatively, are generally the preferred method for monitoring wildlife in Botswana because they're less intensive and they don't require any technical equipment. The ability of track surveys, however, to determine whether populations are increasing or decreasing is widely disputed. And I will be trying to use these field methods to answer 3 research questions. The first is, what are the densities of the carnivore community? Our research will be the first to use camera trap surveys in combination with advanced statistical models to estimate the density of an entire carnivore community. And in a field like conservation, where time, money, and manpower are always limiting factors, this could result in considerable savings. And this method could be applied internationally in areas where information on multiple wildlife species is sorely needed. Our next question is, what influences the distribution of carnivores? Is it the vegetation? Is it the prey densities? Or is it more human-related factors like road density or distance to human development? And this information can be used by the Botswana government to predict the impacts of various environmental or land use changes on the carnivore communities. And lastly, we just want to compare the efficacy of the track surveys versus the camera trap surveys so that we can come up with the best monitoring program possible. And just to share my appreciation and love of the incredible diversity of carnivores there, I wanted to show you some photos from this past summer of all the medium and large size carnivores that we photographed. So we have the leopard, which is my personal favorite, the bad-eared fox, cheetah, the aardwolf, which is specialized on eating termites, the blackback jackal, spotted hyena. They unfortunately are extremely curious with the cameras and on several incidences actually ripped them off of the tree. Caracal, African civet, honey badger, serval, African wild dog, African wild cat, and lions. So it really is an incredible system that I feel passionately should be conserved into the future. So now moving on to the second I, which is implement. I want to provide just a little bit of information about wildlife management in Botswana. Portions of the country are designated as national parks or reserves, and these are shown in the dark green, where wildlife have full protection. The parks and reserves are generally buffered by wildlife management areas, which are shown in the lighter green. The wildlife management areas are managed by a policy known as community-based natural resource management. The idea being that by decentralizing the management of the wildlife from the top, from the government agencies, down to the bottom, to the communities that actually live close to these populations, that the communities are going to have increased buy-in into conserving the natural resources. increased stewardship, and they also have financial incentives. The communities lease portions of their wildlife management areas to hunting or photographic safari companies, so they're able to make a profit that way. They also get jobs, are escort guides within the area, and when hunting was allowed, they sold their hunting quotas to safari companies at a profit. The wildlife management areas are separated from adjacent livestock grazing areas by a livestock fence, which was originally put up to prevent the transmission of foot and mouth disease from wild buffalo to domestic cattle so that Botswana could export their beef to the European Union. So in order to actually have our monitoring program implemented into the future, we're going to have to work diligently to build trust, collaboration, and skills with local government agencies as well as local communities. I have a little bit of a head start since I am working with Botswana Predator Conservation Trust, and they've been working in the area since the late 80s. But we will be offering multiple field training workshops where locals can get hands-on experience on how to use the cameras. I also hope to use these situations to learn from them, because being over there, I know that I asked thousands of questions and was able to learn so much from the people that lived there. So it will be a back and forth exercise. I also hope to present my research and potentially provide the communities with the photographs that I have so that that can be used to increase their photo tourism operations. Ultimately, I also hope to build collaborations between these governments and communities and local researchers. That way, after we're gone, local wildlife guides or officers can continue to implement our relatively simplistic field methodologies and then share this information with local researchers who can model the populations. And this would provide widespread comparable data on carnivores across northern Botswana, which could be used to make informed decisions regarding conservation and management. And last but certainly not least, I would like to inspire the future generations of Botswana to be concerned with conservation. And I'm doing this in collaboration with this gentleman that's photographed on your left, Mantusi Sunvula, who goes by the name 16. He is a local wildlife guide from the community of Sankuyo. This program was actually his idea. He was helping me with my field work and told me about it, and I immediately jumped on board. International tourists pay tens of thousands of dollars to come to Botswana and view the wildlife, but children that live in these communities less than 10 kilometers away don't have the same opportunities. We trialed the program in August and took out 42 kids over the course of 6 days. And as astonishing as it may be, this was the first time that most of them had ever seen lions, wild dogs, and leopards. And we put together a little video to show you about the program.
Hello, my name is Mantusi 16 Sunvula from Sankuyo, a local village just in the eastern side of the Carnivore Delta. I'm trying to start a program called Wild Joys. My project is only trying to create an enabling preservation of the wildlife, teach them about the wild, meaning wildlife, plants, trees, soil, grass, everything about the wild.
To start a program, Wild Joys, that will take children from local communities and bring them into the bush to provide them with positive wildlife encounters. As part of my PhD, it's my goal to help 16 turn his dream into a reality. My mom's like, did they even look at you? So we're hoping to teach them about the different field techniques that we are using to expose them to conservation. and also teach them about the natural history of the area, allow them to see animal behavior firsthand. They see these collared animals, but they had no idea what the collars were for, so Chris, who's a postdoc, did a little demo. And I took all of this footage over the course of just 3 days. And the music is a local Botswana artist. This was 16's idea. That one's the least accurate. I got a neighboring safari camp to donate the vehicle to us for the 6 days. Thank you, thank you. So just to wrap everything up, I really believe by trying to incorporate the wildlife system with the human system that it's going to result in more effective conservation measures, not just now but into the future, which is most important because I want to provide Botswana with a program that they can implement themselves and they don't need to rely on Westerners coming over to continue doing this. So I hope to do this through identifying the monitoring program, implementing the program by building these collaborations and relationships with local agencies and communities, and inspiring the youth. And this idea of identifying, implementing, and inspiring can be applied to all of the locations where Marcelo works across the world, hopefully resulting in more effective and long-term conservation. And with that, I'd like to thank Dr. Tico McNutt, who is the director of the Botswana Predator Conservation Trust and on my committee, the wonderful people that helped me with some of my field work this summer, and my funders for my pilot season. I am currently in a grant writing frenzy to get support for my upcoming field season. And I know there's no questions now, but thank you very much, and I would love if you have any questions, please come and ask me. I look forward to answering them and to getting your input on how I can more successfully turn my vision into an action. So thank you.